Today, we're looking at the top 50 running backs for Dynasty Fantasy Football. We're including the rookies. We're looking at the values, but more, we are looking at the categories for these running backs. And what I've discovered while looking at these running backs, which I've already knew, and a lot of you guys already know this, I don't really care that much about the running back position. I take the values as they come, and I go tit for tat with that. Wow, looking at wide receivers and tight ends. So honestly, where running backs ranked and where they're valued at that moment may just hinder on how I'm feeling during that day, who I already have drafted, and how far they fell in the draft, because I'm always looking for a discount. So we're looking at the tier maker. We're going to break off these running backs into tiers, and we're going to move them around a little bit. So it's like rankings, but it's going to be by category. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're helping you build your dynasty teams. We're helping you maneuver during your startup drafts. We're helping you definitely with the rookie drafts. We're breaking down these rookies. We're doing prospect profiles and everything else, and it's all right here. Click that button. Stop missing out. But we got to look at our first tier, our top tier, our stud tier. Who's going to go in that tier? Who are the studs among these running backs? These top 50 or so running backs that we're looking at today. And in the stud tier, the first guy we're looking at, or the first two guys, Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. Bijan Robinson is a stud, and we got a long time left for his career. We're going to be productive for a bit in Dynasty Fantasy Football. We're good in the passing game. We're electric, and we just went ham since week 6. We only had 2 games where we weren't an RB1. Jahmyr Gibbs, solid as well, 21.1 points per game. Back in the season was good still, and some of you guys have him as the RB1. Some of you guys have Bijan Robinson as the RB1, and guess what? You're both right. They're both great running backs. Pick your poison. They're both going to produce. Bijan had a little bit more on the top end when it came to production from week to week. However, Jahmyr Gibbs had a little bit of a higher floor, and he was a little bit more steady. That being said, they're both great running backs. However, I want to add in a running back here due to value, due to sentiment here in the next few months, draft capital, and things are going to change. And maybe after a year, the masses will have him in this tier, but I'd rather be a little bit early. That's Ashton Jeanty. He's going to be drafted pretty high in the first round. He's going to be getting the opportunity to prove himself. He's going to be the workhorse. He's a workhorse running back. And anybody who drafts him high is going to be looking to use them as a workhorse running back. There's a lot of landing spots in the first round for him where he can be used and be very advantageous for fantasy football. I believe just putting him in the stud tier already, just being ahead of the market. And on top of that, it's going to end up like that unless he's going to be a colossal bust. There's only 2 ways it's going to shake out. He's going to be a huge bust, or he's going to be in the stud tier, because that's his prospect profile, stud. His draft capital is going to say stud. So the only way he's not going to be a stud is if he's a total dud. Nobody's projecting that out to be, but no one projected it out for Trent Richardson either. But Ashton Jeanty is a player that, if you're drafting him high in rookie drafts, you're drafting him early, you're holding on to that pick, you're trading away for a Godfather offer, it has to be something immense, you might as well already throw him up there. We're looking at our next tier though. It's also a stud tier. However, when I categorize this, these are stud running backs with an injury history. They're not too far off in production to the studs. They also can be productive for multiple years, but they also have an injury history to them. They get banged up. They've been banged up. Maybe they've been good this year, but prior, years past, maybe they got some wear and tear on the tires. Worn out studs. Maybe that's what it should say, but I can only fit so many letters. That's the context to this tier. And the running backs I'm looking at here, Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, Devin H, and Jonathan Taylor. And you can make that case that these guys are stud producers for Dynasty Fantasy Football. These guys can give you RB1 weeks on the regular, and that's what we're after here. points per game. That's cool and all. You can get 22 points per game out of Saquon Barkley. You can get 15 out of Breece Hall. However, those spike weeks is what you're really chasing, and you're hoping that floor ain't too low. None of these guys have low floors, and all these guys have upside ceilings, and these guys are productive as an RB1 almost on the regular, and that's what I like about these guys. And when I talk about injury histories, we know about Jonathan Taylor, Devin H. in 2 years now, and we've suffered some injuries. We had some setbacks, but nothing too major. Breece Hall, we had the knee issue, and we also have a Jets issue. Saquon Barkley, great this year. Love Saquon. He's an older running back prospect. We've also experienced a lot of injuries throughout his career. We got a lot of wear on the tires, so bumping him down a little bit isn't too bad, but we were very productive this year. 22 points per game, should hold value for a good bit. Redraft, he's going to be an easy first rounder. But the rookies, there's rookies to go along with these guys. Take the injury out, these guys have stud potential, and these guys have potential of being landing spots. And we're looking at the next 4 running backs that are usually coming off the board. Kaleb Johnson, Omarion Hampton, TreVeyon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. So what we're seeing right now, where they're projected to go in drafts, day 2 guys, potential late first rounders here that could be landing in situations where they're getting a lot of work, if not being workhorses. They're going to be pushing these guys eventually, if not in production, Dynasty Fantasy Football value. And if they land in a good spot, it could be to the moon in Dynasty Fantasy Football value within the next 18 months from now. That being said, I have them ranked high because they're younger, because of stock portfolios for Dynasty Fantasy Football, where that stock after the draft could be going up. And if they don't get drafted high, if one falls, which could happen since we are deep with talent at the running back position, we'll just send them down a tier or 2. But we're moving on to our next tier. I call this the money tier. These are running backs that are productive. They got some hindrance in their prospect profiles. They're a little bit scary, and when I look at them at value, I'm really playing the board. I'm just playing the board when I'm playing my startup draft. I'm looking at the board, I'm looking at the wide receivers who's left, and I'm just trying to manipulate the market here, taking who is best at cost or where the well's dried up at wide receiver usually. Tight end, I usually wait on tight end. And in this money tier, I want to start off with 3 veteran running backs who get a lot of workload, who a lot of people are watching hawkishly going into 2025. Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, and Kyren Williams. Christian McCaffrey is very scary, but he's also scary when he's healthy because he can be productive. Derrick Henry, I think a lot of people are going to say he's got a few more good years left. Maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. But people are saying he's got a few more good years left. And a lot of us play with a redraft mentality when it comes to running backs. So we're really just watching where he falls. In our startup drafts, Kyren Williams, the younger one of the bunch, but a lot of work this year. And he was getting a lot of opportunities, a lot of touches. Is that going to slow down or decrease his career going forward? We also have Blake Corum there, who might get some workload maybe next year or the year after. Kyren Williams does have some money to him because he can be hella productive. A week in, week out RB1. But we're going up to our next set of veterans here. Chase Brown, Chuba Hubbard, Kenneth Walker, David Montgomery, James Cook. All these guys can land in RB1 status every given week. Chase Brown has the upside with what he can do in the receiving game. He's very explosive. Chuba Hubbard is being slept on. He is being slept on ADP. Out of all the running backs listed in these tiers, he's the one I'm higher on the most. Looking at ADP over at DOF, being slept on, you can catch him on the cheap. That means, like, I could rank him higher, but I'm looking for him at a discount. Kenneth Walker, we had some injuries in there. I think we're always going to get injuries in there. I think it's going to be up and down. I think he's an injury stud, actually. You can move him up there if you want. But he's a guy that can give you some boom weeks, but expect him to miss him a few weeks every season because that's been the trend. David Montgomery is just steady. Getting goal line work, getting opportunities. He's the thunder to Jahmyr Gibbs' lightning. David Montgomery's got a lot of upside in this offense, and I like how you can count on him any given Sunday as long as he's healthy on the field. James Cook sold out this year. He did well. He played well, multiple RB1 weeks, 15.7 points per game. You can't go against that. All these guys, I'm taking the cheaper one when it comes to my drafts. But when I look at these players on the board, I'm excited. Christian McCaffrey is the scariest one. Scary if I sleep on him, he could be back healthy going nuclear. Scary if I overdraft him or draft him too much. It could be a swan song with this injury, or maybe not for long with this injury. And a lot of Niners fans, when I look at mock drafts, when I'm doing those videos and I select a running back or talk about running backs in their area, they talk about drafting a running back in the first round. So there's sentiment among their fan base that getting running backs in the draft is a prosperous thing for them to do. But we got rookies in here. We got young players in here. Bucky Irving should be a guy that needs to be mentioned because he came on strong, especially in the back half of the season from weeks 12 through 18. He was the guy in Tampa Bay. I don't see him giving that job away anytime soon, and I'm very high on him, especially due to his age and what we saw on the field. I got rookies in here as well. Devin Neal, Ollie Gordon, Dylan Sampson, Cam Scatterbo. And the reason why is these guys could shoot up the board. These guys could be drafted a little bit higher than expected. Day 2 guys or early day 3 guys, good size adjusted athleticism, good production profiles from these running backs. A lot of these running backs, when everything's said and done, they're going to be mixed in with the money tier. They are. And if one falls, I'll just drop them down a tier. It's not like I'm not going to do more of these videos. So that's what's just going to happen. That's where we're at today, early February. But if I'm shifting this around for more player value, if you're looking at that, if it makes you a little bit scary, I'm very high on Bucky Irving, so I will be drafting him a little bit higher than some of the other guys. Christian McCaffrey's taking a slide back. Now, I might draft Chuba Hubbard ahead of him, David Montgomery, depending on how I feel, how my shares are. But again, Christian McCaffrey, I'm scared of. If you're scared of Christian McCaffrey and you want to limit your shares, go ahead and do so. If you want to be a year early instead of a year too late, go ahead and do so. Christian McCaffrey, what we saw this year with the injuries, for the long term, age, longevity, it's hard to make that case for when you're getting good production from a lot of the other running backs and you're going to have other wide receivers on the board. The rookie running backs are there. I like them a lot. I'm high on James Cook as well because he's getting volume and he's in an offense that can push the pace. Kyren Williams is getting workload, and I'll be high on him if I feel like I'm going redrafty with my running backs in that startup draft or in that league. However, I'm not. Then I might be looking at James Cook, Bucky Irving, Kenneth Walker, or something else over top of him. Same thing with Derrick Henry. So really, it really depends on my roster construction. So if you feel like I'm wishy-washy, that's why I'm not doing rankings. That's why I'm doing tiers. That's why I'm doing categories for these running backs, because I switch things up. Why would I tell you to draft a guy at this position if I'm going to change it up from draft to draft? That would be me lying. I'm just being honest with you guys. And sometimes I make trades and I'll do a video and I might be like, oh man, I actually would do another trade in this league for the other guy. That's why I'm talking market with these players, talking outside the box with these players, because I don't want to be that way. I want to be honest with my opinion on these players. But we're going to the risky money tier. These running backs are money. They got value, but they're risky. And we're looking at Tyrone Tracy, Joe Mixon, Josh Jacobs, James Conner, Brian Robinson, Tony Pollard. You know why. You know why. I'll spell it out to you. Tyrone Tracy is a Giants, and Giants are risky. And he's in the same caliber, really, Tony Pollard, but he was on this year. Tony Pollard was a standout RB2 with 2 RB1 weeks, 12.8 points per game, a fall off in the back end of the season due to injury. Joe Mixon, older, we hit with injuries, but we can be productive. Josh Jacobs, that knife could fall any week. James Conner, same thing, but he's kicking around, he's looking good. We could get James Conner for a few more years or a few more weeks, but you don't know. But whenever he's on the field, as of right now, looking solid, holding it down, and I'm not a hater of James Conner. I like him at price, especially at redraft. These players you may want to play money ball with more in redraft leagues, best ball leagues or more year one focused, but they are risky money, but can be productive. So you're looking at them at value, and you know it's not for a long time. So you got to look at the other investments at ADP and how your team is built. Definitely not for rebuilding teams. Definitely not for teams that need a few years before they can compete. Definitely for teams that are making a push in the playoffs already. You can see it with your roster, and you're moving your chips around to get those players. Tyrone Tracy is a lie on that standpoint because he is younger. So if you are rebuilding, you can work off that. But on the other standpoint, late round pick on the Giants, still risky money when it comes to the category. Next category we're looking at is risky youth. Younger players that are good, they're good, and they're good values right now in startup ADP, but they're still risky options. Trey Benson, Ray Davis, Blake Corum, Zach Charbonnet, risky. Zach Charbonnet, you do not know when he's going to be the guy, but when he's the guy, he's productive. Blake Corum may never be the guy. It could be the Kyron Williams show forever. That could be the thing. Ray Davis, it could be the James Cook show forever. Trey Benson might get his opportunity sooner than later, but he might be sharing the backfield too. If that happens, he's explosive. But on top of that, you do not know how long James Conner is going to hold it down. People's been saying James Conner's been dust for the last few years now. He's still holding it down. A great short-term asset for Dynasty Fantasy Football. A great asset for redraft. Trey Benson is a good guy to get to hold on the cheap. These running backs are great for rebuilding teams. Zach Charbonnet is great for all teams because he's great for the back end of your roster. And when given the opportunity, he could be a mainstay for your lineup. We got rookies valued in this tier because they are risky when it comes to their draft stock and portfolio, especially due to how deep this draft is. DJ Giddens, Damian Martinez, Woody Marks, Donovan Edwards. I love Woody Marks. He could jump boards. I like DJ Giddens. I think he's a sneaky prospect. I like Damian Martinez. Donovan Edwards. I want to see where he goes in the draft. But he could be electric. He could be used right. And if he's used right, he could be a home run hitter in fantasy football. Their stock could go up and down after the draft. I could definitely see that. I'm throwing in Jonathan Brooks and Tajay Spears. Tajay Spears is sharing the backfield. He's also on the Titans. Jonathan Brooks, we do not know what he's going to be looking like 2 years from now due to those knee injuries. We do not know how much he's set back for the long term. Moving on to our next tier, our risky long tier, and we're looking at Alvin Kamara, J.K. Dobbins, Najee Harris, Rachaad White, Travis Etienne, DeAndre Swift, Isaiah Pacheco. When I think about 2 years from now, when I look at these running backs, I can't tell you where they're going to be at. I definitely can't. Maybe Travis Etienne might be safer, but also upside may not be there. And I can't exclude the Jaguars from not drafting a running back from this year's draft because any team could draft another running back. It's so stacked, and it could be a 7th rounder, and that could push for opportunity. That's how deep this draft is. Alvin Kamara, I like him a lot. J.K. Dobbins, I don't know if we can get another season of this production. Najee Harris, where's he going in free agency? And why would I pay up for him in free agency when I got 20 running backs in the draft? I can pick one in any round. Rachaad White is losing his value to Bucky Irving. Still getting you some work in the passing game. Still can get you some fantasy production. But 2 years from now, is he going to be a mainstay in the Bucs offense when they can keep drafting running backs? DeAndre Swift, how long is he going to be a Bear, honestly? Isaiah Pacheco, it's been a sad run right now, but he might be a good discount unless the Chiefs draft another running back. When Pacheco was out, they were hurting pretty good, and you can get another running back this year on the cheap per the draft. I look at Alvin Kamara, I think he's more of a risky money tier guy. I think I'm going to put him in the risky money tier. I'm going to put him there. I like his upside week to week, how he scores, and I definitely know long-term he's not going to be there. If I know that going in, I know the risk is there for the long term. I'm just going to put him there because I want to value him a little bit higher. And him versus Joe Mixon, him versus Josh Jacobs, him versus James Conner versus production, long-term viability, it just makes sense. But when I'm looking at J.K. Dobbins, Najee Harris, Rachaad White, Travis Etienne, DeAndre Swift, Isaiah Pacheco, long-term wise, value-wise, they are a little bit risky. And now the final tier here, the we wait tier. Ramondre Stevenson, Aaron Jones. Stevenson signed that deal. Aaron Jones hitting free agency. I don't really want these running backs, but I'm also waiting in drafts. And if they fall to me and there's nothing left on the board, maybe, but probably not. But those are the rankings that we're looking at right now. We're looking at a top 50. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Again, this is in categories, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a little strange, but you got rankings all over the place. So let's make things a little bit different. Let's break up some values. Let's break up some tiers. And let's categorize these backs for what they are, so we can make some strategies. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.